Today's episode is with Chef Ryan, co-owner and chef of Battello, Kitchen Step, Ember and Eagle. We talked about his journey, how he develops menus, how he juggles all these restaurants between wedding venues, his restaurant at an airport, and much, much more. Let's get into it.
You know where you are!
This is the Outliers Podcast. Let's go! Chef Ryan Depersio, welcome to the Outliers Menu Podcast.
Thank you
for being here, man.
Thank you.
The parking must have been a bitch to get here, huh?
It's Hoboken.
Dude, Hoboken is the worst.
And the funny thing is I haven't, my partner Corey, moved Turtle Club to Saku. So that was really the last time that I really spent any time over here. And I was just like, I should have just Ubered from Battello. I would have got here a lot faster.
Yeah, man. And honestly, I really appreciate you coming on because you're one of the most successful chefs in all of New Jersey with your multiple restaurants between Battello, which is one of the hottest wedding venues in the tri-state area, if not the country. Kitchen Step, a very well-respected restaurant in Jersey City, and now in the airport, which is super badass.
Very cool.
And then now with your newest venture, Ember and Eagle, which is now on the rise. So I appreciate you being here, man. I'm so fascinated on you and your journey as a chef, a businessman, a husband, a father. And again, thank you for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. As I mentioned, our conversation the week before the pandemic was a good conversation.
Yeah.
I was excited to do something with you, and then obviously the world came crashing down.
Yeah, dude. And everyone had to figure out and internalize and be like, what? Everyone had to pivot and all of that. But I think it made the stronger.
100%.
Because everyone was everyone took a huge step backwards, and then had to figure out and pivot and do everything like that.
And I have to say that we were prepared because of. If you remember, back at 17, Battello was only open 3 years, and the pier moved, and we had to close for 19 months. We were told 3 months, then it went to 6, then it went to 10, and then finally, 19 months in, we reopened January of 2019. So when the pandemic opened, we were only reopened a year and 2 months.
No way.
Yeah.
So it was just another sort of
Everybody only remembers the wins.
Yeah.
They don't know the losses that we go through, it's been a great 21 years, and I'm looking forward to just keep growing. But you got to suffer losses to have wins.
You've been a part of Battello for 21 years? Or
No, so I opened up my first restaurant in Montclair, Fascino.
Yep.
In 2003, I was 25 years old.
Which got awarded on New York Times and everything.
Yeah. New York Times came through 2 months in, and it was an excellent, which is one off of extraordinary, which only a few restaurants
Like Little Bird at N or something.
No. So it was New Jersey.
Okay.
So it was Restaurant Nicholas got extraordinary, and maybe a couple other. But the New York,
25, that's still badass, dude.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. The restaurant blew up, did James Beard dinners, was on a crazy list of pre-nomination. I say to this day, I don't belong on there. I mean, David Chang was on the list. I'm trying to think of who else. Who's the guy down south?
Sean Brock?
Sean Brock was on the list. Crazy list of people, and then there was the person.
Dude, you represent Jersey, man. Come on, dude. I respect the humility, but you're definitely a part of that.
No, it was great, and I worked in Manhattan. I worked for Jean Georges and David Boulay and Bill Telepan, and a lot of the guys that I worked with are crazy successful country. So it's really nice to be a part of that family.
So I have to ask, what started your love for food?
My mother. So I come from, I wouldn't say super old school Italian, but definitely an Italian family. My grandfather's father had a restaurant in Newark, and they all worked at it. It was called Paul's Lunch. It was open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Why he called it Paul's Lunch, I do not know. I'll never get that answer.
They didn't have brand books back then.
Yeah,
they were
exactly. But it started there. My grandfather was a builder, but he was also a saxophone player, and he was a home chef on the weekend. So we literally would go to his house every Sunday. Up until I opened my restaurant, up until I was 25 years old, I literally was at my grandfather's house almost every Sunday. He'd make fresh gnocchi. My grandmother would make stuffed artichokes and, shrimp scampi and, eggplant caponata, just all the traditional dishes.
That's amazing, though. It's just surrounded by so many creative people, too.
100%.
Musician and all of that as well.
Yeah. And my mother was a recipe developer for women's magazines.
No way.
Yeah, so she did cookbooks for Dr. Atkins. She was part of New Jersey Monthly Magazine, Red Book, a lot of women's magazines. And she had a catering company when we were young, just by herself. She catered from her house, but she did parties, to 100, all by her own, all on her own. And when let's face it, I was not a good student. Diagnosed ADD as a kid, and didn't love school. And she just, she saw that I had a love for cooking. So, started probably when I was 10 or 11, where she would just, I'd cook alongside her. She would show me things. I was interested in the Food Network. Food Network, kind of just came out. And, as I got a little older, both of my parents worked. So my brother and I were home alone, say at 12, 13 years old. And, she started writing recipes, and I would start following them. I'd start changing them. She liked what I did. And then it was kind of like she kind of directed me into, hey, if this is what you want to do and you love it, and you hate school, why don't we just jump into this, and I'll keep teaching you and all that. And I started, I just made a devotion that I was going to work in restaurants. Started washing dishes at 16, and worked probably when I was 17. I worked 4 jobs, 6 days a week. Loved it. Washed dishes, delivered pizza, worked the salad station, and did prep cook at a catering company. And it was my last 2 years of high school. So my junior year and my senior year, I did work study. They were just Ryan's he doesn't pay attention in class, Let's
get him the hell out of class and let him get to work.
Yeah, I always make this joke that Ferris Bueller's Day Off was made for me, even though it came out before me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was made for me as a teenager. I did all that stuff. I used to write letters, and in my father's handwriting, co-sign it, or just sign it, in his name. I used to, and then once my voice got deep, I started calling it, and I was like, this is Anthony Depersio. Ryan's not feeling well today, so I'm going to keep him home. And there was always 2 women that answered the phone, and the one I got, she was just like, okay, no problem. And then probably my last 6 months of high school, she was like,
yeah, I have a feeling this is not him.
Yeah, it was the other girl that answered.
Okay.
I hung up 4 times, opened the other one more, and I was like, we're going to the beach today. I need to get this. She knew it was me, and she did. She was like, okay, no problem, Mr. Depersio. Called my dad. My dad called me. He's like, where are you?
Yeah, what the fuck are you doing? But it's wild that I feel like there's a lot of chefs, and it's that everyone had a common story in the component of just not being good at school. Yeah. It was and because you want to get your hands dirty, and you love the level of progression, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And just seeing challenge yourself each day and getting better and better. 100%. It seems like your mom was the influencer before the influencers. You know what I'm saying? Because now you can watch. There's so many recipes out there, 100%. And it's easy to look on YouTube real quick and look up how to make fresh pasta. But back then, it was very difficult to really either watching Julia Child or Emerald on TV, or you have your mom at home who's helping with resident development. So you're breeded to be a chef.
Yeah. And, listen, we lived in a pretty good lifestyle. Mm-hmm. We were not poor. We were not rich. Mm-hmm. But, my dad also, contributed by saying, once they realized what we loved was or what I loved, he was just like, all right, so it's your birthday. Where do you want to go? In New York City, pick a place. And I'd go in the New York Times and I'd look at who got awesome, 3 stars. And I was like, ooh, we're going to go to Picholine. We're going to go to La Bernardin. We're going to go to Gotham Bar and Grill. When I was 17, Alfred Pratali was the king, you know? And it was always my birthday, my brother's birthday. He made an excuse all of our birthdays, and we would go in and we'd go to a really nice restaurant, and I'd just absorb everything.
That's awesome, man, because I feel like there's nothing better than actually, it doesn't matter. I think that's what's so beautiful about the food industry is no matter how much there's modernizing of technology and marketing and video and this and that, nothing is better than experiencing the theatrics of the live performance of a chef and the service. And then you experienced at such an early age, built these unbelievable principles and foundational roots without you maybe even knowing it at that time.
100%.
You know, and so being like, holy shit, okay, it's like the young athlete who was like, their dad was already an athlete and they're just like playing sports all the time. Yeah. And all of a sudden that's all they know is like, you know, kicking a soccer ball. For you is putting a knife in your hand.
Yeah.
And so did you end up going to culinary school, or that was pretty much your school, was just your family?
No, yeah. So, you know, we definitely decided that college was not for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, CIA was the biggest school to go.
Of course.
Right? But it was like $25,000 a year at the time. Now I think it's like 50.
Yeah, it's literally the same as like a fucking 4-year degree.
Yeah.
100%. So you want to go to an accountant or you want to be a chef?
Yeah. And honestly, I hate to say it, I personally think that if you can afford to go to CIA, I think you should.
Yeah.
You know, or you could go the route that I did, which is like I went to New York Restaurant School. It's not around anymore. You could go to FCI as well, which is a great school. And I think their program might be a little less. I'm not 100% sure. But New York Restaurant School was 16 months. And like 4 of the months was like nutrition, you know, so where you were like in like 2 hours a day. And even the cooking part was like half day. I was like in at 8 or 8:30, and I was done at 12:30. So I would go to 2 weeks after high school. I literally wanted to get it over with.
Yeah.
So I went. I drove into the city every day, and then I got a job at a restaurant called Manzu, which was a Sicilian restaurant where Lore Fish Bar is now.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a Matthew Kenny restaurant. And I worked for Adam Perry Lang. I don't know if you guys know Adam Perry Lang. Huge in barbecue in Los Angeles. He was trained under like Danielle Blude, went to France, like super fine dining, and like pivoted like in his late 20s, early 30s, and became like a barbecue master.
Wow.
His Instagram's amazing, so you should check it out.
Yeah, I definitely will.
So Adam was my CDC at Manzu. Worked side by side with him, and spent about a year there. And from Manzu, I went to Boulay Bakery. Now, once I got through my program and went through Manzu, and I was done, I like immediately went to Boulay, managed to sneak my way in there because Boulay Bakery was like, you know, 3-star restaurant in New York City. Boulay was, you know, considered at the time, I mean, he just died recently.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Considered one of the greatest chefs in the country. Got my way in there, started from the bottom, you know, as a salad guy. Spent a year there, and you know it was pretty amazing because I never worked in a French restaurant. You know, in Jersey.
You're an Italian guy, yeah.
Italian, you know, I worked Italian, and I kind of like I kind of pushed away Italian, even though like my last 21 years of my life as a chef, I've done a lot of Italian, modern Italian, I should say. But Manzu definitely, Boulay definitely, I was like, I want to see outside the box, you know?
Especially at that age, too. That's the exploration age.
Yep.
You know, it's like you almost like kind of run away from your roots in your early 20s, and that's when you come back to it.
Yeah.
You know?
It really did. So Boulay, you know, I spent a year there, and I felt like it was time to move on. I was working 70 hours a week, and my net pay was $290 a week.
Oh my God, dude!
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And I was tired. I was driving in every day.
They're just paying for gas at that point.
At the 11.5-month mark, I God honest truth, I fell asleep at the wheel for like a tenth of a second. And I opened my eyes, and I was heading towards a garbage truck. And I like swerved out of the way, and I was like, I need to do something else.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to work for Bill Talapan at Judson Grill. Amazing experience because it went from French to New American. And I met Bill actually through Manzu, through Matthew Kenny, because he came on as a consultant at one point.
Wow.
So I reached out to him, told him what was going on, and he just got 3 stars in the New York Times. So I went to Judson Grill, and I spent a year and a half there.
Wow.
Yeah, which was, you know, amazing. You know, and I kind of like went through all the, you know, jobs, you know, from salad to hot apps to
saute.
You know, yeah. And I ended up meeting Chris Cannon, who was the GM there, who owns Jockey Hollow. And that's kind of really cool, too, is like,
seeing all these
culinary world is so big.
So small.
But it's so small. It's like, you meet somebody and it's like they know them, they know that, or, they move on to do more things. And, Chris came to New Jersey and opened up Hollow.
It's funny you're saying that because I told someone this recently that I met, and they asked, like, my biggest thing is I wish I told myself when I first started O-Bagel when I was 24 and signed that lease was everyone you interact with, will be the same people you see in 10 years.
Yeah.
So every relationship matters.
Does.
And make an impact. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter. And the same people you see going up are going to be the same people you see going down and then back up.
100%. Yeah, I agree. And I've had some really good interactions and I have amazing relationships. I mean, I co-chair multiple, charities where I bring in the greatest chefs in New Jersey to come raise money with me.
Yeah.
So I'm very blessed in that way. And then there's some relationships that didn't work out, and I don't love that they didn't work out, but
it is what it is.
I'm at a time in my life where it's like,
it is what it is.
Yeah. Wish you the best.
Yeah.
I got to think about me and my family.
Yeah. So you were saying that you were working at these restaurants, and then what was the next step after?
So when I worked at Judson Grill, I really wanted to go travel to Europe. It was something that all the chefs that I worked for or looked up to, all these Boulet and, just even guys I didn't work, Eric Repair, like everybody worked abroad. And I just felt like it was something that I needed to try, which was hard for me because I was very close with my family.
Yeah, an Italian roots, Jersey guy. That family is everything,
Yeah, it was hard. And so I went to, Bill helped me go to France. And I worked I started at a 1-star Michelin restaurant, and I was there for about 3 weeks, and they put me right in pastry, and I wasn't supposed to go to pastry.
Yeah.
And I only had
at the time?
So I only had 2 months, and I was like, I really want to absorb what I can in these 2 months. So I kind of walked around town. I kept trying to get into places. I went to some big dogs, and they were just like, you need to have visa papers, you need to have this. Mm-hmm. Finally, I walked into this, old restaurant with this old man. And when I say old, at the time, I mean, he was probably 70, and I thought he was older, but he was cooking everything.
That's wild. That's 70?
It was a 1-star Michelin. Him and, 2 other guys were cooking everything. Him and his wife. His wife ran the front. He ran the kitchen. And he was like, he's like, you can come work with me. Dude, the eggs never hit the refrigerator. They were so fresh. He was just bringing in, just the freshest product. So I kind of just tried to absorb as much as I can. And then a lot of the restaurants were closed 2 days, and I would just try to go out and eat and absorb, whatever I could out of, the days off I had. And it was hard. Like I said, leaving my family. I left my first girlfriend, and I didn't know how to handle that. It was definitely a eye-opening, adventure that I wasn't ready for. And I came home ready to get back to work, but I don't know if I could do that again.
Yeah, that's not for me. I don't want to be.
Maybe. I wasn't sure. So I go and I'm I come back and I'm trying to figure out where I want to work. And I really want to work at a 4-star restaurant.
Yeah.
When I say 4 stars, it's 4 stars from the New York Times. Mm-hmm. That was the most respected at the time review. There was no Michelin, right? So I kind of tried to get into a bunch of restaurants and I couldn't get in anywhere. Danielle, I even interviewed at Danielle. They never called me back. Danielle Bluth interviewed me in the Skybox, and I never got a call back. And I was just it's getting kind of frustrated. I ended up getting a job offer at John George's restaurant, Vong, which was French Thai. Super cool. When I think about it now, I almost wish I spent a little more time there. I was there for 4 months, but at the end of the 3-month mark, I was kind of I went to the chef Pierre, who still works for Jean Georges now, and I was just I don't know if this is for me. I really wanted to go work in uber fine dining, and I think I need to go that route. I'm going to put in my notice, And we were doing huge numbers, like 390 covers, like on a Saturday night with like 90 seats. Like it was just fast and furious. And he, I guess, saw a little spark in me and was like, let me call John George. So he called John George, and John George called me and interviewed me. And he said, I'll have a spot for you in about 4 to 5 weeks. Will you wait? You got to start from the bottom when you come. I said, whatever you need. They guaranteed me a spot. I worked at Vaughn for about 5 more weeks. Went into John George, right in Garmager in the salad station. And then I ended up spending 2.5 years there. And I kind of floated around.
At John George's restaurant?
John George, the flagship.
Yeah.
The Trump. Yeah. And it was awesome. It was my best experience ever.
And why is that?
I mean, John George was there every day. You know, even when I worked for Boulet, he wasn't really, you know, he was at the office across the street, you know, and we got glimpses of him. And, you know, but like John George was there every day. Like you had access to his knowledge every day. Didn't care if you wanted to talk to him, he was always down. Don't make eye contact if he was mad. But you know, when he was there to like really, you know, show you, he was there. You know.
How many people were in the kitchen?
So when I worked there, you had Garmager, hot apps, Garmager, hot apps, 2 fish guys. So one was cooking fish, one was doing veg, entremetier, and then you had meat and I want to say a sauce guy and a meat guy, and the meat guy took care of the veg. So it was 2, 4, 6, around 6, 7 people.
Oh, so you were like it was like intimate.
Have you ever been there?
No, never been there.
Okay, so when you walk into Nougatine, which is the more casual restaurant. That kitchen's actually downstairs in the basement. And then there's 2 big doors to the left of Nougatine, and those doors walk into the main dining room of Jean Georges. But while you're in Nougatine, there's an open kitchen. That open kitchen is cooking for the main dining room, not Nougatine. Nougatine's downstairs.
That's interesting.
So everybody thinks that they're cooking for the entire place, but they're actually just cooking for the main dining room.
While working with him, what do you think separates him from all the other chefs out there? Like, why is he considered as like this top percent outlier chef?
You know, I mean, he's, you know, definitely, you know, went over the boundary of like cooking when it came to like using different ingredients. You know, he at the time, you know, when he was, say, a cook or even a chef before he owned, you know, he worked in Bangkok, he worked in Thailand, he worked all over the world, but spent a lot of time in Asia. And I think that nobody at the time that was cooking French food was using galangal, ginger, you know, soy sauce, you know, in French cooking.
Yeah, at that time it was like revolutionary.
Exactly. And he definitely, one of the things that I loved about his cooking and still love is that it's light. It's not super heavy. I think that sometimes when you walk out of a French restaurant, no matter how much you love it,
it's so much dairy.
It's heavy. It's, you know, and it definitely weighs you down. And I never felt that way. And I've tried to emulate my style of cooking by trying to cook as, you know, a little lighter than the norm. Because there's a lot of chefs that, you know, they're amazing. You know, there's tons of butter, tons of sugar, you know, and you know, I'm trying to, you know, extract the most flavor out of the ingredient. And if you're buying good ingredients,
you don't need that.
You don't need to add a lot to it.
Yes.
You know?
Let the flavors and the ingredients speak for themselves.
Let them shine.
Let it pop.
Let them shine.
Especially for the perfect balance between all those ingredients. Yeah. I'm assuming he probably incorporated a lot more acid and fresh chilies and things like that.
100%.
And herbs.
Yep.
Into the
and acid's huge. I love acid.
Same.
Acid for me is like, you know.
I'm a sucker for anything pickled.
Yeah.
You know? I just love it.
Yeah. You know, one of the 2 things that I love is salt and acid. You know, so if you can add some kind of lemon, lime, you know, to something without actually having to be a main component, it's just brightening the dish, you know. So anyway, getting back to John George, you know, I spent 2.5 years there. I actually worked in John George kitchen and the Nougatine kitchen. I kind of took advantage, and I probably, they always say no regrets, but like I kind of regret it. I took a position in Nougat Team because it was Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Fair, man. You're in your mid-20s, early 20s.
Yeah. I still wanted to, like, hang out and party with my
some
friends.
type of a life.
Still wanted that Jersey Shore, weekends in the summer. But I still learned so much. Of course. I had 2 chef de cuisines. Well, so the first year I was there, the chef de cuisine was Gabriel Cruther, who's a Michelin-starred chef now in New York City. And honestly, his restaurant, Gabriel Cruther, is one of my top 5 favorite restaurants all time. And then Greg Breenan and Tony DeSalvo. The 2 of them were chef de cuisines for the second year I was there. Greg still works for Jean-Georges. Tony is out in Los Angeles. But they taught me so much, because they were just so talented themselves, and I just kind of tried to absorb, as much as I could from them. And then I really wanted to go to Italy. Like, I was just like, I had this itch. I needed to try this again. I needed to travel one more time.
Yeah.
And the GM of Jean-Georges at the time, his name's Patrick Giovanni, now owns like a restaurant or a hotel in like Monaco. Yeah, it's crazy, like these people that you meet. Where they go in life,
At first you were just seeing this guy mincing some onions, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's a fucking hotel in Monaco.
No, I'm telling you. I mean, listen, the GM position was a big job at John.
Of course.
But the talent that I worked with. I mean, I've worked with Greg Gourdet, who's been winning James Beard Awards for the last 2 years. Angelo Sosa, who's got restaurants out west. These are just like
icons.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing for our age group of people. But I wanted to go to Italy. And I kind of expressed this to Patrick because he was Italian. And he was like, I worked at this place in Florence called Enoteca Pinchiori. And I heard of it, but I started looking it up, and I was like this place is, been open. At the time, I want to say it was open like 10 years or 15 years. And, the guys who, the sons from Le Cirque worked there. And like, I was just like, okay, this is cool. So he hooked me up. They set me up. They gave me a place to live above the restaurant. I worked for free for 4.5 months. Greatest experience ever. And I honestly wish that I stayed or I went back.
Why?
Well, number one, there is definitely a technique to everything. And at the time as a young kid, I was obsessed with like fine dining. And all I wanted to do was do fine dining.
Like tasting menus and just...
Yeah. But there's a technique then. There's a technique to making bagels, right? So there's a technique to making pizza. There's a technique to making, falafel. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's like, so if you learn how to do all these things, you could do it your own way.
Yes.
And so I came home and I literally said to my father, I want to go back. And listen, as a chef, I wasn't making any money. It was $300-$400 a week. I was living.
Just break even.
Yeah,
I
don't think I was breaking even. And said I wanted to go back, and he was like, you're at the time I was 24, and he was like, I think you should probably start saving some money. You probably should start building, then just being a cook. Like it was a good dad talk.
Yeah.
It's
like, and he's probably a little boost. You probably want to continue to learn, and he was maybe was he boosting you to be like, what's next?
Yes, 100%.
We need to level up.
Listen,
now.
My dad is someone that I look up to, and he taught me a lot about being a man, being a gentleman, working hard, work ethic. I mean, he worked so hard through his life, and I just was like, okay, all right, it's time. As an older man now, I say I probably would love. I wish I stayed.
Interesting.
I'll tell you 2 things. One, I would have liked to have gone and worked, say, like at a restaurant that made fresh, like solely fresh pasta, or even learn more about pizza, like real,
like pizza. Real Neapolitan, real pizza in general.
And most importantly, at the end of the 4.5 months, I was speaking Italian like a 3-year-old kid, right? And I knew that if I went back and I spent a full year there, I would have been speaking fluent Italian.
Yeah.
You know? And just to have that in my life, you know, it's speaking a second language is always
It's amazing. Yeah.
You know? I mean, half the people, and on top of it, I'm a chef. I'm in the kitchen. I have a lot of Hispanic people that work for me. And Italian and Spanish are pretty close.
Yes.
I mean, every person that I work with that speaks Italian can communicate with any Spanish person.
Yes, there's at least it's definitely better than broken English, right? You can at least speak broken
Spanglish.
Italian. Yeah. Instead of just saying limpio, you know, you're actually ripping it.
Yeah. Or when I talk, I'm like, I'll say 2 things in Spanish, 2 things in English, and they're like, I got you.
Yeah.
But this is how you say it. So I came back. I ended up taking a sous chef position at Cafe Panache in Ramsey with Kevin Kohler. Very iconic restaurant in New Jersey, been open over 35 years. He passed a few years ago, unfortunately, at a very young age, but his daughter runs it and oversees it, and the team runs it. He's had a team there for a long time, and they're still thriving. But I ended up going there for about 6 months. And, I started to think, like, am I old enough to own my own restaurant? If I was able to tell myself then, I'd say no. But it worked out. Mm-hmm. I found a space in Montclair. I walked in, and because it said for rent, and I saw somebody was in the space, and I walked in, and I was just like, "Hey, I'm interested in leasing this for a restaurant." And the guy was like, "Oh no, the owners don't want a restaurant. They don't want to deal with food in their building." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I just left it at that. I walked back. And I left a folder with a menu in my car at all times because not like I knew this was going to happen. It just was in my car because I was like, I created this menu. I want to show people. And like if anybody ever talked about it, I wanted to be like, hey, this is like a concept that I want to do, So I grabbed the menu. As I'm getting in the car, I see the menu on the seat. And I grab it, and I walk back into the room, and I go, hey, the owners, can you give them this? This is the style of a restaurant that I want to do here. I don't want to do fast food. I want to do really upscale. I work for restaurants in Manhattan. I worked in France and Italy. I take a lot of pride in what I do. That's literally, and I hand it to them, never expect anything. Literally, like 48 hours goes by. I get a phone call. Now I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
So I go to my dad, and I'm like, hey, my dad and my mother. And I'm like, listen, I found this space. Mommy's been talking about, like, getting out of the corporate, kitchens and doing, like, a little cafe. Why don't we do a restaurant together? I was like, I'll be the chef. She could be the pastry chef. She's great at pastries. I don't want anything to do with pastries. I said, and let's do it. And he was just like, you're crazy, blah, blah. And then my mom really talked to him privately and was like, let's do this. Like, let's do this together. And again, my father borrowed money against his house. Like, for the beginning, a lot of years, people were like, oh, Ryan's dad, paid for his restaurant. But I'm like, no, he borrowed money against his home and took a risk,
Yeah, I get that. My dad did the same thing for me in Hoboken.
That's what I'm saying.
So I get that.
And you have it in your mind and your heart that somebody you love took a risk for you.
Everything.
And I worked, we were open 6 days, but I worked 7 days a week. I'd go in on Sunday, and I would clean the fridge, and I'd clean the dry goods area. I'd mop the floors if I didn't like the way they were done the night before. So, but we did it. And as we were putting it together, my brother, who was an analyst for Morgan Stanley, hated corporate job. Went to Rutgers, and he worked as a server at Rutgers. And was kind of like...
He was the front of the house guy.
Yeah. So he ended up saying, like, I'll be the manager. And we did a business plan. I mean, my brother and I it was 2003, but we took $45,000 a year each. Mm-hmm. That's it. Mm-hmm. That was our salary. And don't forget that my brother was already married.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old was he? Because at the time you were 25.
25, he was 27.
Okay.
2 years apart.
Yeah.
And, we opened as a 48-seat restaurant, 1,500 square feet. Got written up in the New York Times on the Sunday New Jersey section. Got the excellent review. Then got reviewed in New Jersey Monthly, and got a 3-star review there as well.
What were those moments like? Was it just super validating, or especially at that age?
I think I didn't get to enjoy it as much as I wanted to because the restaurant got so busy that I was just kind of like, you know. But a lot happened. I mean, a lot has happened in the last 21 years.
Of course, but in that moment, was it off to when you opened up the restaurant?
We were busy fast.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. And you're probably doing something because you have your years of experience. Yeah, you were 25, so you were the young stallion that also had 12, 13 years of like real restaurant experience and like learning in the kitchen and you know, with your mom and traveling all over the world. Yeah. So you're probably doing things
but the professional experience was literally like 5-6 years.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah.
And then when you opened, you were probably at that time was Montclair the culinary city as it is now? Always kind of was?
It was.
Okay, so it always kind of was.
I think it.
So is that why you wanted to be in that market too?
I wanted to be in an affluent area that I knew they were going to appreciate that I was going outside the box of traditional Italian.
Yes, because you need people to be receptive of doing things that aren't just like spaghetti and meatballs. It's like, no, I'm trying to modernize the game.
Yeah.
I'm having a voice.
Yep, and I need someone to want to eat
and appreciate it.
Say crab stuffed zucchini flowers on a Tuesday, not just on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
You know?
That sounds delicious, by the way. It really does. I actually don't really see that, actually.
Crab stuffed zucchini flowers?
Yeah.
That was actually a signature dish at Fascino, and we're going to test some new ones this Thursday at Battello.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, have you been to Battello?
Yes. Countless times.
Cool.
It's always like the spot that when I want to get dressed up nicely with my wife, and it's always like I think that's what's so beautiful about Battello is that it's a place that, of course, you can go there on a Thursday night, Wednesday night.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
it's both.
It's both. But at the same time, it's also an experience like that's where you go for your anniversary.
Yeah.
You know, that's where you go if you get a promotion.
Yeah.
That's where you go when it's your birthday.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, typically, you would say that's a death sentence when you say you're.
Yeah, I'm not saying in the negative way.
No, I know. I'm saying that we're very fortunate at Battello that people treat it in both ways.
Yes.
The restaurant's busy. Like, we do 200 people on a Monday night.
Yes.
It's always busy. But like typically, that could be a death sentence.
Yeah,
being like that special spot. But I guess we just we managed to break the boundary of being both. Mm-hmm. Especially if we know it's your special. Like we pull out all the stops.
Yeah.
But I forgot where we were at.
No, we were just talking about different. No, because we were going different directions. But first was about your restaurant, your first baby, which was.
Oh yeah, so
and
my
it was
brother,
a rocket ship. And then you started creating all these different recipes, and thankfully, the city of Montclair was very receptive to all these that your modern culinary voice.
Yeah.
And during that time, was it one of those things you knew you wanted to open up other restaurants, or is it one of those situations where you're just kind of just trying to keep up with what was happening in that moment?
No, I literally pushed my dad
let's fucking go.
Yeah, and he once said when we were like, listen, Fascino did well. But it was a BYO. Mm-hmm. After the second year, we broke through the wall, added another 1,500 square feet.
That's sick.
Made it a 90-seat restaurant.
Wow.
90-seat restaurant. And there were some challenges that came through to fill the seats at 100 seats.
Yeah, because it's completely different.
Yeah.
And it didn't create as much intimacy. Correct. Sometimes those smaller restaurants creates intimacy, the energy and the lust of being so tight sometimes.
I agree. Especially at that time, small restaurants were kind of still super happening.
Yeah.
Now it's like everybody's managed to get investors and go big budget. But we broke through and we saw some challenges and again, my father once said, he goes, if we listened to exactly what Ryan wants to do, we'd either be super broke or super rich. There would be nothing in between, And it's just, I think it was just me having a hustler spirit.
Yeah. I love that line. I relate to that.
My uncle, my godfather, Danny Vidiello, he said to my father once, he goes, you got nothing to worry about with your son. He's like, this was when I was a kid getting in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been arrested. I've done nothing bad, but stupid things like buying alcohol, underage, stuff like that. And he's like, you'll have nothing to worry about. He just came to me. I'll tell you a very quick story. There was a gambling ring when I was in high school through 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds.
What, just rolling dice?
No, like an actual gambling ring of like game, like sports betting.
No way.
Yes. And they got in trouble.
Yeah.
And anybody that was over 18 got in trouble.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, my uncle is a printer, and I wanted to print T-shirts with Nutley High School and dice hanging off and with like this saying on the back about gambling and blah, blah. And he's like, I can't fucking do that. He's like, your dad will kill me. He's like, great idea, though. And, he was like, yeah, I'll never have to worry about Ryan. He's got a hustler spirit. He'll figure a way to do it. And it's always been that way. Again, starting from the beginning of this conversation, you have to accept the losses.
Yeah.
To go forward. I mean, listen, I opened up my second restaurant with my parents in 2008, I believe. It was called Bar Cara. It was in Bloomfield. Everybody loved Bar Cara, but the building was old. It was like constant problems. I mean,
that's the worst. I have to do.
The air conditioning went down like the first 3 months, and the landlord was like, "Oh, that's your responsibility." Mm-hmm. It was like we had to come up with $30,000, like that, and just like constant problems. And it was like the bottom line of making that restaurant was just always like kind of like if this was the line, it was like here, 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 mm-hmm. here. Second year in, my brother's like,
I don't see the light in this tunnel.
Not even that. He was not seeing the light of him staying in the restaurant business.
Okay.
So he ended up leaving on year 10 of Fascino. Second year of Bar Cara. There was, 2.5 years in.
So you were 35 at this point?
No.
10 years in.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. He's been gone. Yeah. Wait. No, hold on. Now I'm thinking. Was that 9? No, maybe it was year. I thought it was year 10. Maybe it was 8. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
well, so it was deep in, and to relatively speaking,
yes.
Deep in. Yeah.
Yeah. So he ended up leaving. A few months later, me and my father were like, "Listen, we can't run this without Anthony. Let's sell it. Mm-hmm. Let's kind of pivot." We sold it and immediately. Sold it for a great price. Here's the loss. The guy on the second year of him running it goes out of business, owes us $350,000.
Oh.
Never pays it and runs. So there you go. There's that first loss.
Yeah, huge loss.
Now, while Bar Cara first opened, Fascino definitely saw a little bit of a lull because mm-hmm. people were not seeing my face. Mm-hmm. By the way, my parents worked every Friday and Saturday night. My dad was in the printing business, but still came every Friday and Saturday night, worked the floor. So now you have my brother working the floor, my parents working the floor, me in the kitchen cooking. Mm-hmm. Now we go to open Bar Cara, and we're gone. Mm-hmm. So there was a lull there. So we sell Bar Cara. Now, in this time of me putting Bar Cara up for sale, I'm friends with Corey Checkett. I friended him through our friend Clay Mordson, who owns a winery out in California. He comes to do a wine dinner at Fascino. Corey knew him from going out to California. He comes for dinner. We meet. We become friendly. A couple years later, this is this time where I'm selling Bar Cara. Corey comes into Bar Cara one night for dinner, and he says to me, I got the perfect project, and I want you to be a part of it. Brings me over to Michael Anthony's, right? That's what it was called. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I want to do this seafood restaurant, and I want to make it a wedding venue as well, so that we could run a full-service restaurant when we're not having weddings and have weddings every weekend. And I'm like, this is a great idea. I love this. It's like, I can't leave my dad. I said, I need to sell this restaurant. I need to get Fascino back up and running. I was like, I'll recommend some people. I recommended some people. I bowed out of the project. 4 months pass, 3 months pass. I call him. I go, hey, how's that project going? I said, I called him to let him know that Bar Cara sold, mm-hmm. and I wanted to, see how he was doing. And he's like, oh, I'm signing the deal next week. He's like, it's done deal. I was like, oh, that's great. I was like, did you hire a chef? He's like, no. I was like, well, I sold Bar Cara and I'm available now. And he was like, really? So we met, struck up a deal, and that c'est la vie. We've been partners for 10 years. And, Battello obviously was strong out the gates. Lot of struggles trying to get it, where we needed it to be. Then the pier closed and the pandemic happened, and we're just stronger. We walk out of the fire, together.
That's wild, man.
And then you have my other partner Joe, who opened it with us.
Mm-hmm.
He's director of operations. I mean, he's the king of the inside work. His wife Dominique is the event planner, who worked for me at Fascino when she was 18, 19 years old as a server, and then she went off to school. Johnson & Wales, went to work for Danielle Blude and David Burke in New York, and I pulled her in. So the four of us were the opening operators of Battello, and we were all still together.
What year was that?
2014. We just celebrated 10 years.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah,
that's a huge win, especially in that space. How did you manage the transition from a relatively smaller scale restaurant into a larger scale restaurant? Because I would feel like that's the most daunting component.
It was very hard. One thing that I didn't mention was in the time of Fascino and Barcara, those years, the Performing Arts Center in Newark, I became pretty popular in the culinary world. Today Show, internet cooking shows, did Chopped, my name was starting to get out there. Mm-hmm. James Beard obviously was a big help. And when they Googled popular or, celebrated chefs in New Jersey, which is exactly what the guy told me from, it's a company out in Texas. It's called Culinary Arts or whatever. I forgot the name of it. They operate restaurants and event spaces in performing arts centers around the country. So they won the bid for the Performing Arts Center. It was them or Steven Starr.
Wow.
Yeah. And they chose them because they promoted that they were going to get a local chef. The Performing Arts Center is all about local, right? So they were going to get a local chef to be their namesake on the restaurant and, consult on the food and all that. Came to me, we struck up a deal, and I ended up consulting. The restaurant was like 250 seats, Now, to be honest with you, Performing Arts Center is never really busy in the restaurant, but they do huge money in events and shows. So if there was a show there on a Saturday, people would go there for dinner. They do 250 people in an hour. Crazy.
So all this was happening before Battello?
This all happened before Battello. I had two 3-year contracts. Total of 6 years of consulting with Nico. It was called Nico Kitchen and Bar at the Performing Arts Center. I hired my friend Adam Rose to be the chef de cuisine, who I don't know if you know Sparrows.
Yes.
So he owned Sparrows. He had Villa Lobos in Montclair. But he was the CDC, and him and I collaborated on the menus. And I did that for 6 years into having Battello as well.
So it was almost like a breeding ground for you too, to understand what menu works, what menu doesn't work.
Dude, we did a party for 1,000 people.
And the prep it's like the prep, everything.
Yeah. I mean, they had guys, because it was a controlled amount of employees, like when we did the 1,000 people, they would have guys fly in from Texas and help us.
I was going to say, because I'm curious about that, even the payroll situation, being you can't keep everyone on payroll all the time, so you're almost recruiting in people just for a weekend.
Yeah. It was pretty wild. So that was my first real experience in recipe development. Because whenever I did anything for Fascino and Barcara, I just literally walked on the stove and I cooked.
Yeah.
But now I had to write recipes. I had to weigh things out. And when I did that, I kind of learned how to manage larger teams. And delegate. So we opened Battello. Went through some struggles, with some chefs, and then I brought in Keon, who was my CDC at Barcara. So now I had Barcara.
Yeah, so you had a relationship already.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's you create these relationships with these people, and I always tell everybody, burning bridges is not a good thing because, there's always going to be an opportunity.
Yeah, even if it doesn't work out temporarily, at least have the cadence of being hey, I'm gonna be out of here in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
just giving you a heads up.
Yeah,
because who knows if you need that job in 3 years. Yeah, you want to make sure that's a good relationship with some of your guys.
So so from there we we were open for 3.5 years. Now don't forget, I didn't want Fascino to fall. So how was I going to like keep an eye on that while spending a lot of time in Battello and stuff like that? The funny thing is that you just had him on. My friend Robbie Felice, he came back from Vegas.
Yeah.
He ended up helping me and working weekends over at
Wow.
Fascino. So, you know, him and I have a great relationship, and he came in, now wasn't a chef yet, just a sous chef out in Vegas. He was trying to find a place what he wanted to do. At the time, he actually was talking about moving to Los Angeles and all these different things. And I'm like, in the meantime, can you come work at Fascino and just kind of help the team maintain what they're doing, and I'll let you run specials and stuff like that. So he ended up spending a decent amount of time over there until he found Biagio. And then our third year of Battello, then the pier moved. And our world came crashing down. Now, Kitchen Step was also only open a year. So we just opened Kitchen Step. Battello was thriving. And we had to close it down, like, abruptly. Like, it was bad. Like, I'll never forget the woman who was trying to, like, make us look so bad about the brides having to cancel all their weddings. We gave them all their deposits back. Like, we had to give back $1 million in deposits.
Oh, my God.
You know?
Dude.
Like, it was bad. So, again, taking risk. You know, Joe, Corey, and I decided to invest in a restaurant down in Brielle. Joe and I were just talking about this the other day. Like, we lived... Now, I have kids at home. Corey and Joe didn't have kids at the time. You know, we lived at a shore house Thursday through Sunday together. Like, with Dominique, Corey's girlfriend Amelia used to come and help. You know, his wife now. And we lived at this shore house, and we ran this restaurant because we closed the deal on, like, a week before Memorial Day weekend. So we were like, okay, we can't renovate it right now. We have to operate it through the summer, because summer's like...
It's like that's the only time to make money. Yeah.
So we ran it, and we were trying to get the plans together to renovate it. And it was an interesting summer. We were trying to bring in... We lost our biggest income. Battello was our biggest income. You know, I lost a ton of money just trying to, like...
Figure it out, because
we all lost a ton of money.
Bills and everything.
Not even that. We were trying to maintain our partnerships together. Like, we didn't want to go off and get a job somewhere, you know. And Fascino wasn't going to be the place that was going to support my family. You know?
Solely. Yeah.
You know, I was just starting a new family. I was divorced. I had a kid from my previous marriage, and I was just trying to, like, you know, I wanted to stay in. I cashed out my IRA, and, you know, just stayed in the game. Dude. Bet on our team.
Yes.
Bet on our team that we can make it work. So, Brielle doesn't work out. The investor doesn't come up with the money to renovate the place. So now we were like, we asked for our money back. We get our money back. Now we're just like back to square one. Now we start focusing on, you know, Battello, because it's about to open 18, 19 months later. And we open it. And that was it, man. We opened it. It was just packed.
It was like, and what's amazing too is being able to continue to bet on yourself, bet on your team, dealing with the adversity, and then seeing that reward at the end. And during that moment, everyone's like, "Oh, these guys are killing it," but they don't realize all of the adversity you guys had to overcome to get to that point.
Yeah,
it's like, dude, I'm not lucky. This is why it happened. This is why we have being in the wedding business is ultra successful, but it took us a fucking years and years of turbulence to get to this point.
Yeah.
And I think that's also another probably misconception of being in the wedding business too.
No, it takes 3 years. It takes 3 years to fill a book.
Interesting.
How are you holding that staff?
Yeah.
That was the greatest idea that came to Corey was, we're going to run a full-service restaurant. And then, you know, when we sell out, the restaurant will be open when we don't sell weddings. And that's it. We are right now, 90% of the year, we're open Sunday through Thursday. There are Fridays that are open, and there are Sundays that we're open. And the funny thing is that, like, if we have 11 Fridays in a row that we have a wedding, and that 12th one, it's open, we just open the book on Resi. We don't have to promote it. It just fills up.
Wow.
It's great. We're very fortunate. Very fortunate. There was a wedding that was canceled, like last minute. and we filled the book like 250 people.
That's fucking sick.
It's wild.
That is wild. How do you go about curating menus? What's your philosophy?
So it depends on the restaurant. I mean, I've mostly focused on Italian influenced.
Yeah.
Kitchen Step was where I needed to pivot and be like, I want to do a local neighborhood bistro.
Okay.
I needed to create food that I probably,
couldn't do
or didn't want to do.
Okay.
Like where I was like we have a French onion mac and cheese on the menu. Like,
yes.
Back when I was 30, I would be like, I'm never making mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Now it's like, who cares?
It's
like
fun.
How you make it. It's fun, and it goes back to me saying like, should I have spent a year making pizza? Mm-hmm. I'd probably have a pizza restaurant right now.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love it. So.
So let's say you were opening up a new, smaller scaled restaurant, right?
Yeah.
How would you go about creating that menu? Do you go just like creatively? Do you have like a theme that you want to hit? Or would you go like start with apps, entrees?
I think it has to do with, number one, where it's located and what's the concept we're going to do. Because if you go to Kitchen Step and you go to Ember and Eagle or even Battello, there's such a world of a difference. Like I will never put an entree over, say, $38. And to be honest with you, everything at Kitchen Step is pretty much under $34, and all the entrees are under, say, $20, which still kind of seems a little high, but, I mean, food's expensive.
Food's expensive, yes.
Especially ever since the pandemic,
For sure.
But, like, at Battello, you can get a 40-ounce bone-in ribeye for like $200.
Yeah,
I would never do that. So I develop a menu according to the area and the concept of what we're doing. And when I wanted to do Ember and Eagle, an Italian chop house, I knew that I wanted pasta. Like pasta's always been my thing. I love pasta. Been making it since day one at Fascino.
Yeah.
And if you ever think about it, or if you ever look back. Any new chefs, young chefs, were not making fresh pasta in 2003.
That's wild.
If you wanted fresh pasta, you had to go to a place that had an old Italian guy working behind the stove. But it was something I loved. I fell in love with it in Italy, and I fell in love with it because my grandfather made fresh pasta. So I wanted to bring, pasta to my menu without all of it being red sauce. So, so basically I go, most menus I'll always make sure that there is a raw fish.
Okay.
Or oysters.
Yeah.
And then I have to make sure that there are, salads or vegetable driven, which is something that I kind of, learned as I opened Kitchen Step and kept Kitchen Step going, is that there are a lot of people especially if you're in a city, that want to eat vegetable-focused dishes. The pasta. Like, Kitchen Step's the only restaurant that doesn't have, like, a pasta menu. We have fresh gnocchi on the menu.
Yes.
With a braised duck sugo, Sorry, I had to throw that in.
Yeah, I like that, man, of course.
Yeah, and I just kind of go down the line. I always make sure that there are items that people will eat. A lot of young chefs, they're like, let me see if I could do this ox heart.
Yeah.
Sell it. And you're like, no, you're not going to.
See, I was going to ask you that. Like, how do you find I found it very difficult because we're working on opening up something in the near future in Hoboken, and I'm having a difficulties between I want to push the boundaries of bringing advanced flavors, but also you don't want it to be so pretentious and what's the word I'm looking for?
I know
pretentious, but like also I want it to approachable. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to bring advanced flavors and make it approachable. How do you do that within your restaurants? Because your restaurants, it's higher end.
Yeah.
But then you also want people, the average person, like, can't read some of the things. They're like, you think basic things are like basic, but to them they're like, what?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I co-design menus now with my chefs because there's 3 locations.
Yeah.
I mean, the airport is technically 4, but the airport's run by a hospitality company, and it's like a branding deal, basically.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was going to ask you about that later on, but
so it's our concept, and it's my recipes.
Yeah.
But they run it.
Yes.
But I co-design with them, and I kind of just say to them, I'm like, listen, you want to put a weird, or I won't say weird, but just like an exotic ingredient in something, put it in the short rib or the chicken, because everybody's going to order short rib and chicken. Mm-hmm. And then you use the simpler ingredient with, say, oh, hey, chef, I'm going to bring in, this like exotic fish. Let's just say Australian barramundi. It's not exotic, but
it is.
But nobody knows what a lot of people don't know what barramundi is. Yeah. But if you serve it with a lobster risotto, they don't give a fuck about the barramundi.
Yeah, that's true.
They care about the lobster risotto. So you have to design it around the people of making it approachable.
Yes.
And attracting them in on how to, not care about that ingredient, because they eat chicken or they eat the lobster risotto and they're just like, it's a white fish. You can sell it. You have to make sure your team knows what they're serving, what they're selling. So at our restaurants, primarily Battello and Ember and Eagle, they get a full packet. It's a picture of the dish. It's exactly what's on the dish. It's all the allergies that go with it. And then a description on how I think you should sell it. So if I'm the server, I'm going to say that the person's going to say, I'll have the bone marrow crusted filet mignon. You're going to say, the server's going to be like, excellent. Bone marrow crusted filet is grilled to a perfect medium rare, unless you want it different. The butter is a bread and butter crust, melted bone marrow directly on top, crisp, served on a bed of palm puree and grilled asparagus. Is that to your liking? Did I just sell it?
You totally sold me. I love the bone marrow butter on top.
And they just need to have that knowledge that, when somebody asks, what do you think of this dish? At this point, you're selling it to them. I went to a restaurant yesterday, and it was phenomenal. And I don't want to say it out loud, but the server, I asked him what dishes he recommended, and every dish he recommended was the 3 most expensive.
Yeah, that's like the most, yeah.
And I was like, and then I asked about the wine, and he pointed to the most expensive wine. And that's not how I want my restaurants to run. Number one, I want the servers to recommend what they like. It doesn't matter to me that you like chicken, you like short rib, and you like
pasta, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just sell the dish you like,
I love what you said about, because I think it's very impactful and valuable for, people who are listening, because when it comes to so you have a binder. Is it a binder? Is it a study guide essentially for these servers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then each thing has a picture of the thing.
Picture, diagram.
Do you have tastings as well for them? Because they have to. I think it's a big thing too. Is like you need your servers to be actually trying your food. Yeah. I know you're trying to control food costs. No. How do you go about that? Like, is there like every day you do a tasting of a new special or something like that?
Yeah. So we run specials in all the restaurants. So if there's a special, chef makes it for the staff. Yeah. Brings it out during pre-shift. Mm-hmm. Pre-shift is a 10 to 15-minute conversation about the night that we're about to have, any issues we had the night before, and the specials. And we always make it. And I don't care if it's caviar or if it's a salad. I want them to taste it. I want them to know what it is. And the times that they taste it are the times that they sell it the most.
For sure.
And say 85% of the staff tasted it on Tuesday, but there is, say, a smaller percentage of those people that were not in on Tuesday, and the chef's like, I just made it yesterday and he didn't make it. There'll be less sales because there's 4 servers that weren't here on Tuesday that didn't get to taste it. So I think it's super important that they taste it, super important they know what's in it, and most importantly, in this day and age, know the allergies.
Yes. I also think it's really smart that you're going to know, like, hey, how do you describe barramundi? You know what I'm saying? That fish. And how do you describe what is the protein that you're doing, or what is a sofrito braised short rib? What does sofrito mean?
Yeah.
And describe, like, almost like predicting what the questions are going to be.
Yeah. When
it comes to your cooks, how do you educate your prep guys and your line cooks?
So I'm very fortunate. They've always said surround yourself with people better than you.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to hire super talented people, and I have many, many years. We just come up with a plan. There's a recipe book. There's, if there's a new person coming in, we'll take one of our more talented cooks and say, stick with this person, make sure that they're, doing it, show them how to do it. And then, just keeping an eye on them and constantly making sure that you got to communicate with them.
Yes.
There is that the whole yelling and screaming thing is over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's more about, coddling. I don't want to use the word coddle, like teaching them, tutoring them.
Yes.
Now at Battello, we're talking about like my entire 90% of the team at Battello's been there 2 years.
That's awesome.
And they're so strong.
Yeah.
So strong.
So it says a lot about you as a leader and what you got and your partners and all of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not just me.
No, I know that.
We are a
team, a unit.
We are a force to be reckoned with. And we care a lot, You'll any night of the week, you'll see one of us at one of the restaurants.
How do you go about finding talent?
I mean, I think at this point, being 21 years in, it's, Instagram's great.
Yeah.
I have 13,000 followers, which is not bad. And I think that when I put something out there, there's always a message coming through. Whether it works out or not, I wouldn't say it always does. But I manage to find people. You obviously have to pay well.
Yeah.
I think that you need to find the boundary of operating with a bit of overtime, because there are restaurants out there, and that's sometimes the hardest part for us to actually find people, because there's restaurants out there that will have, prep guys during the day, and they'll have their cooks come in at 4 o'clock, set up the station, and cook. But they're not learning. Like, I could tell you, there are guys that I've had come in. Now, if you come in for an interview, you're going to do a trail.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk through that process.
Yeah, so if you if you interview...
So you interview with you.
They interview with me or a chef.
Is there any certain questions that you ask? Let's start with the interview process.
I have about 20 on my phone.
Okay, what are your top questions that you ask to identify?
Do you own your own knife kit?
Okay.
Is this a paycheck or a passion? What is your favorite style of cooking? Have you ever made fresh pasta? What is your knife skills on a scale of 1 through 10? Everybody says a 9 and ends up being a 6. You know what I mean? What else? Who is there a chef that you look up to in the culinary world? Do you have a mentor that you look up to? All these questions happen during this interview, and then I just see where that goes. Now, there are.
What's the biggest tell when you're asking those questions? You're like, this guy has it or this guy does not.
Yes to a knife kit.
Yeah. Why is that? Just show sophistication?
A lot of people don't have knife kits. Not in New Jersey. In Manhattan, yes. But in New Jersey, no. There's not a lot. And, I've kind of made it a requirement, And honestly, like...
It's like being in the band. If you don't have your own instrument, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Yes.
And we've gone far enough. Even my old chef, Ari, I mean, God bless him, he would buy 5 or 6 knives, Japanese knives, for like hundreds of dollars. And he would say, who wants to buy one? You could pay me off weekly at $25 a week. Mm-hmm. Like, he was so passionate about it. Like, he would be like, and these guys did it, and they took it on, and they took his passion towards cooking and really just like thrived on it. And so the knife kit's number one. What are your knife skills? And do you have a mentor? Mm-hmm. Oh, my last question is, and I got this one from my brother, so if you're watching, Anthony, this was because of you. He said, what is the most proud thing in your life from that you can remember? And it does not have to be about cooking. Because, it
says a lot about them.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's impactful in their life.
Like how successful you are in the bagel industry. Yeah. You could, if I ask you that question, you're going to be like, my first kid or, something like that. Or, I could say,
That was one of my questions for you, honestly, is what are you the most proud of within your career? I literally have it on the bottom here.
If it has to do with career and not family.
Career, yeah.
Yeah, career, I'd say managing to keep my name, in the industry and constantly evolving. having a name to contribute to the charities that I'm a part of, and now being able to talk to the younger guys and have them look at me
as a mentor
themselves, because there's guys that never work for me, but like if I see them somewhere, they'll ask me questions like,
for sure,
how do I do this? What do I do this? And and I try to answer them as best I could.
Going back to the interview process, so then that guy.
Oh, from there?
Yeah,
So if I like you,
yeah, if I said I have a knife kit. My mentor is someone I looked up to is David Chang.
Yeah.
So on and so forth.
Yeah. So now I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, are you willing to come in to do a trail? It's an unpaid trail. Mm-hmm. So basically, you come in. It's an audition.
Yeah. And
keep this in mind. You're not just auditioning for me. I'm auditioning for you. You got to make sure that this is a good fit for you. So they come in. They spend like 3 or 4 hours with a cook. Now, if it's a cook position, they'll spend 3 or 4 hours prepping, like early prep into service, and then like see if they pick it up. If my guy shows you that the scallop dish is a shellfish risotto with the shellfish butter and finished with mini charred spears of asparagus and some micros and some basil oil, and then finished with chili flakes, whatever. If I show that to you twice and then the ticket comes in and I'm like, you want to do it? He goes, yeah, I'll do it. And does it? Say 80% of the way? I'm like, this is the type of person I want to hire.
Yes.
Now, if you're interviewing for a sous chef position or a chef position, then that's an entire day. You come in at 10 a.m., you create a menu. So it's typically an appetizer, a pasta, a fish dish, and a meat dish. And you have to create these. You come in at 10, you create your menu, you start prepping, say, 11, an hour later. You have 5 hours to create this menu. And then at 4 or 4:30, you present these dishes one by one to me and another chef or a manager or one of my partners, Corey or Joe or Dominique. And then we eat these dishes. And then after that, they'll spend a little time on the pass with the chef, just talking. So the chef can feel them out, see if it's somebody they want to work with.
Any good synergy?
Because the guy could be super talented, and then he gets on the pass with you, and he's like, well, why don't you guys do it like this?
Yeah.
Why don't you,
he's like that arrogant guy.
Yeah,
like, dude.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, it's that locker room guy.
So
that's very interesting, though, what you said about if you're hiring a chef. So let's say, do you do like chop style? Like, hey, go look at everything we have in the produce? Or you kind of, hey, this is what the plan is tomorrow, be prepared?
So some people come, they're like, they have their menu written.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll be like, can you get me this? And if it's worth getting, like if they want a piece of fish, I can get that. But if you're asking for an ingredient that I have to buy an entire case of something.
Yeah, it's like, figure it out, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a chop style. It's not like
you're not trying to.
The pressure's not on.
Yeah, you're not trying to like make them figure out how to use like Oreos. It's like no, this is what I meant more so like open pantry.
Yes,
this is what we have. This is what going in. Mm-hmm. I want to set you up for success because I'm going to judge you on setting up for success.
And you can't take sauce from the staff.
Love that.
Can't now. If you need a veal jus, obviously I'll give you a pint of veal jus because that's like a 2-day process. But if you're going to make a romesco, I want you to make your romesco, not take from,
Yes.
So, and, some people thrive, some people don't. And honestly, some people didn't do well, but there was something in them I liked, and I hired them anyway.
Because you've been in this so much, you know what the it factor is. There's certain things that you can't tell. There's certain components you look for, but there's certain other things you're like, I don't know, man, something about them I like.
Yes.
Something about her I like.
100%. So that's how the process goes, and it's... sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't.
Yeah.
And you just got to learn, and you got to be able to cut ties if it's not working. And then you have to, let that person thrive if they're doing well.
How long, when it comes to managerial sous chef, more on like the higher level roles, what is a good time frame? Do you give them like 30 days, 60, 90, 120? Like how many days do you give them to be like, this is a good amount of time. You should have been picking this up faster.
God, probably on the longer, probably like 4 or 5 months, We give them a lot. I think we're very lenient.
Yeah, that is lenient.
You know, because we want people.
Because I feel like after 90, you start to figure it out who that person is.
Yeah.
You know, you start finding like what type of call out excuses they have, or how they deal with adversity, pressure.
Yeah.
It's more like, is this person consistently optimistic? Is this person, because in the food industry, it's consistent high energy. That's why a lot of us are like ADD. You know what I mean? It's like, what's next? Let me figure this thing out. You know what I mean? And like how to deal with adversity, and almost like want that sick drug of adversity and want to get pushed through to the next day.
I think a lot of people definitely are going to say that this is not the right way, but Bill Telepan actually said this to me once. He was really hard on me, and I was like, why aren't you like that with her? Another cook he's like, she couldn't handle it. You can. He's like, I treat people the way I feel they need to be treated. And he's like, I know I could push you, and I know if I push you, you'll get better. So I kind of managed that way through my life as a chef and an owner, that, you know, I treat people accordingly to what I think they can do. Some people will disagree with that, but I think that if I can manage certain things because they're good at this thing, I'll live through it. I'll manage it, you know, unless it's unmanageable.
For sure. But I think I agree with that, though. I mean, I think sometimes in the kitchen or in a leadership position, the ones that are the most successful, the ones that have the higher EQ than IQ. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The emotional intelligence of being able to deal with all these different people, all walks of life. This one person's coming from a single family home and across the water. You know what I'm saying? Or this other person who grew up in Jersey or from Mexico, wherever it may be, and just all ages. Every person's different. Yeah. So being able to identify their strengths and weaknesses and making sure that you're complementing those strengths and weaknesses to set them up for success, I think is very important a part of leadership and at scale, especially when you have teams at however large your teams are. It's crazy, man.
We have, I think, 90 employees at Battello. I have 30 in the kitchen. Yeah.
When Battello has 90 people?
90 or 100. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, right?
That is wild, man.
Yeah. And now our new location, Ember and Eagle and Tillinghast.
That's a restaurant group within itself, that one restaurant.
Oh, my God. Well, it's Ember and Eagle, it's Tillinghast, and then it's the grill room. So we're on Sun Eagles Golf Course, and the grill room is the private restaurant for the golfers, because we went private. The golf course went private in January. And then Tillinghast is the event space. We fit up to 400 people. And then Ember and Eagle is about 110 seats all in between the restaurant, the bar area, and then the outside. If you count the outside, you're like 130 seats.
How do you make an impact every time you walk into your restaurant? Like, what is your agenda when you go in? Because every time you have to be in all these different places. Yeah. What is your thought process when you go in there? Is there any specific agenda that you have?
I want to make sure that the team is happy, you know. I definitely say hello to everybody, whether they're the dishwasher or the chef.
Yep. So you walk in, you say your hello to everybody.
I always say hello to everybody. And you know, the leaders, I'll ask them how they're doing. You know, is there anything I could do to help out? You know, and you know, that's just making sure that they're happy. Yeah, you got to make sure people are happy.
Yes,
you know. I can't say that I could do it 24/7.
Of course,
but I could say that it's in the back of my mind that I want to make sure you're happy. I mean, man, our team at Battello is amazing, and you know, Joe Corey and I, and Dominique, we worked, you know, every single day full time, you know, at Battello, and then we're like, okay, we're going to take off and go up and down the shore an hour away. Yeah, and we just completely stopped being at Battello and didn't miss a beat.
Because I feel that sometimes because Obig, I opened up another one at Rutgers, and sometimes I look back on it that I'm so proud of the team that it really could run within itself in Hoboken, and sometimes I find myself am I being as impactful as I can be or should be? You know what I'm saying? And I try to certain agendas, because I don't want to be just standing there and they're it's just a fucking world of machines. Sometimes I might be in the way.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I've seen that.
You don't want to go. It's you know, you're on you just want to get your hands dirty. You're on Expo Station or you're on whatever it may be, and sometimes just in the way. Yeah. Next thing I know, I feel like I'm just a glorified greeter. You know,
it's funny to say that because sometimes
I just hand out bags saying thank you.
Yeah, and you know what, Chef Dennis, who runs Ember and Eagle and Tillinghast, we had this conversation the other day where I was just like, you can start giving these guys a good schedule. Like if I'm here and you're here, then we can let one of the sous chefs leave early so that they have a night, a Thursday night or a Friday night off, and vice versa. Like, we're trying to make that work so that we have a nice lifestyle. And that's where I'll come in and, I'll get on Expo and stuff like that. But when they're all there, I'm talking to guests.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And the guests love it.
Yeah, of course.
They do love
and sometimes they're like, where have you been? It's like, dude, I have a strong team.
Yeah.
Like, they're good. We're trying. If anything, you're the most valuable. Of course, you have to solve the bottlenecks, make sure they're happy. But your greatest asset is actually growing, making sure they have an opportunity to grow as well.
Yeah.
And
I actually think that that is probably a fault of ours. And I say that in a not in a bad way, but like, we care so much that we grow slowly than fast.
Yes.
So, and listen, there's nothing wrong with growing slow, and there's nothing wrong with growing fast. If you can do it, do it. But just trying to work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
And not, destroy my life, my personal life as well.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you that. Like the fact that, now within your career, there's probably a lot of opportunities that come your way. How do you determine what's a good opportunity or what's not for you specifically?
Well, I don't take anything outside of our group.
Okay.
I definitely get a lot of offers to like consult or, I'd say mostly consult on projects. And I don't take anything out of our group because we're a team. I think that the opportunities don't just come to me, they come to Corey and Joe. And we know how big Ember and Eagle and Tillinghast project is. And, at this point, it's like, why kill ourselves to do something else when, if this is done right, this could do, 50% more than what Battello does, and
that's crazy.
And then to have the two of them, but it's going to take 3 years. It's going to take 3 years to make it where it needs to be.
When you opened up those restaurants, how do you go about finding your chef de cuisine, like your chef?
Again, I've literally been very fortunate to just like find people.
Okay.
Like,
is there any software out there or apps or anything if someone isn't the same prestigious number that you are?
I use Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed is, probably the best tool when it comes to chefs. I wouldn't say it's great for cooks.
Yeah.
And when I try to put something on Indeed for cooks, I get back like, that I was,
like McDonald's or Popeyes.
Yeah.
You were like the crew.
I
trainer.
even get like shelf stockers. Like
really?
Yeah.
How about, okay, so what type of pay rate you think that range should be for a chef? To be the chef de cuisine?
It depends on the restaurant. I can't really, I don't want to throw out numbers.
Yeah, fair.
Because it depends on the size of the restaurant.
Yeah.
If it's a small restaurant, it could be 75. Like a big restaurant could go up to $100,000,
Okay.
But we also offer like bonus structures where like you can get bonuses off of
food costs
and employee costs and stuff like that. So and then we also offer, if you're a chef, you get 2 weeks paid vacation. And to be honest with you, again, we're so good with our guys. It's like you take 2 weeks and you're good at your job and you're like, hey, I was going to take a couple days off. I know that I'm not going to get paid. I'm like, you're good. We'll take care of it.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of just being good at your job.
Yeah.
We'll take care of it.
You've explored so many different various business models within your career, between the wedding venues and smaller restaurant footprints, now being in the airport. Which one's your favorite?
It's a hard one because like I sold Fascino a year ago.
Yeah.
So on the 20-year mark, we sold it. Fascino, it was my favorite because of the fact that it made me who I am today as a chef. And I absolutely adore Battello because of what we did to it together as a team. The concept, modern Italian seafood, the location. Just there's so much about Battello.
There's so much aura to it.
Yeah,
it's iconic.
Yes, to think that it's open for 10 years and that Fascino was open for 20, and we struggled through a couple of those years, but we made it happen. Battello's not struggling. It's going to be there forever. So, I mean, I definitely would say Battello's my favorite. I'm elated that we came up with the concept Ember and Eagle. it is our most expensive restaurant for sure. But it is a steakhouse. Meat is expensive. Seafood is expensive. And we wanted to create something, down, let's just say it's down the shore, it's 10 minutes from Asbury Park and Long Branch, You can go to the beach 10 minutes from our place, but if you come to our place, you're getting dressed up, you're going to have a great cocktail or martini.
It's an experience.
It's an experience, and right now the restaurant's inside of Tillinghast. So eventually we're going to build a brick and mortar on the property of Sun Eagles Golf Course.
Wow.
But right now it's inside of Tillinghast. So when you pull up, you're pulling up to this mansion-looking building. You walk in, there's grand ceilings and chandeliers and, marble floors. And you walk up to a desk of 4 beautiful women that are hostesses. They whisk you to the bar to have a cocktail. That's this sick black, marbled bar with, just the aesthetics is incredible. You have a drink. You're overlooking a golf course. Then you get whisked up to the second floor, and you have this beautiful dining room with trusses, and and there's front of the house staff everywhere, and the chef is greeting people, and it's definitely an exciting project. It reminds me of I won't say it reminds me of Catch in New York at all, but the idea of this concept could be popular for a long time, and we can make multiple of them. We can open up an Ember and Eagle at Borgata, or we can open in.
So that's been in the back of your guys' minds of being hey, let's build up this.
I don't know about that, but it has for me.
Yeah.
It has for me. I can see an Ember and Eagle in Florida. It's definitely appeals to the masses. You're definitely spending money to go there, but it's a sexy place. And
I need to go there, man.
Yeah.
I need to check it out. Bring the wifey for sure as a date night experience.
Yeah, it's incredible.
There's so many talented chefs out there. What chefs inspire you the most?
Listen, when it comes to mentorship, John George, I spent the most time with him. And just the fact that he's 40 plus years and still thriving is just insane, I definitely look up to that. But I also look up to all my friends in the industry, the fact that, I'm on a group text with Jamie Knott, who owns Saddle River Inn, who, by the way, opened Fascino with me. Him and I cooked side by side for the first year of Fascino. It was just me and him. That's
Wow, I didn't know
that. Robbie's obviously thriving with pasta ramen. Now he's got the Matzo bar coming. AJ Capella at Summit House. Lee Gashon, South and Pine. Anthony Bucco's VP of Culinary for Landmark. These are my people. And Corey Heyer, who was he's at Canoe Country Club. He was the executive chef at Bernard's Inn for over 10 years, 12 years. These guys, and Leah, the girl, they became my friends, years and years ago. And we, have been a core group, and I look up to them on everything they do and how they inspire me every day, and I love our text messages every day, and it's sometimes you're just these are my brothers and my sister, in the industry. So, I look up to the chefs that are working hard in New Jersey to make New Jersey a real culinary, destination, because everybody makes fun of New Jersey. You'll never see the Michelin Guide here. When I opened up Bar Cara, and I was supposed to be reviewed by the New York Times, and they shut down the New Jersey reviews the weekend that I was supposed to be reviewed. I was interviewed. She came for dinner. It was going to be a great, great review, and it never came out. And, it's just it's hard getting that respect here, you know.
I feel like that's what makes us us, though. That's why I think there's a lot more camaraderie now within Jersey, because everyone understands it and like feels like we're like the brother or sister that's like the forgotten child next to New York City.
Listen,
you know,
I think over the last
and that's what creates the grit. And I feel like recently, you know what's also happening a lot? I don't know if you can agree to this, but I think Monmouth County and Ocean County is stepping up so much more too.
Yeah.
That it's not just Hoboken, Jersey City, or Montclair.
I think it's all of New Jersey. I think people are tired of going to New York.
Yep.
And the talent is figuring a way to come here and open stuff. And in the end, you can make fun of New Jersey as much as you want, but it's the Garden State, baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a reason. There are farms everywhere. You can get local produce, you know, and there's farmer markets everywhere. You know,
I just got into it. Honestly, I'm embarrassed to say it, but within the past year, because now I'm living in the burbs, and there's some awesome farms within like Warren.
Where'd you move to?
I live in Martinsville, like between Baskinridge and Bridgewater.
Yep.
And you build relationships with these farmers, and they're just like they're so passionate about garlic scapes, and you're just like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah,
or like
we're getting
fresh herbs.
These like tiny purple tomatoes that are so full of flavor.
Oh my God, nothing is, and that like what you just said about the tomatoes, and the reason I just got hyped is because you're like, this is what it tastes like.
Yeah, and when you buy locally and you're getting good product, you just cut it and put it on the plate.
That's it.
A little olive oil and a little acid.
You've created so many different menu creations. Is there any specific creation that you're the most proud of? That's especially to you. Pasta.
I mean, my very first pasta was the first year that we opened up Fascino. It was called. It's on the menu at Battello. It's ricotta and gnocchi with sweet sausage bolognese and pecorino romano. My most traditional pasta out of all of them. But that kind of just like parlayed into like, you know, making raviolis, agnolotti, panzotti, tagliatelle, pappardelle, you know, and just being able to make all these like great pastas that are, I use traditional. Sometimes I make my own style of a dish, and then sometimes I'll take like a traditional dish, like say cacio e pepe, which is just pasta water, pecorino romano, black pepper, you know, and I'll add, say, broccoli rabe and lobster to it, just enhance it a little more. And honestly, again, going back to the lobster risotto, you put lobster in it, you sell it.
Yeah.
You can put it at any price and you can sell it. Pasta is definitely just my love. And I've been putting a lot of like focus trying to understand pizza. I don't have a pizza place. I've always wanted one. And have an idea for a concept, but who knows if it'll happen or not.
What's the wildest menu creation you thought would be a huge hit that was not?
Ooh. I don't know. That didn't hit. I wouldn't say it's wild, but we do sell foie gras, which is not a wild ingredient. I mean, it's duck liver, or it's sold in a lot of restaurants, but as much as I continue to try to put it and sell it, it doesn't really sell. People that buy it absolutely adore it because they know what it is. Mm-hmm. But it's a hard thing to
sell. And then all of a sudden, if someone doesn't know it, and then you try to explain to them, then they get even more turned off. You're like, anyways, next, I'll just take.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ingredients like amatriciana is a Roman dish made with tomato, onion, guanciale, and a little spice. Right?
What is that? What's guanciale?
There you go. Guanciale. Mm-hmm. It is the cured pig jowl.
It's probably very tender, though.
When you tell a guest, or you tell somebody that, by the way, it's cured pig jowl, they're like, I'm good. But if I said, just consider it a little bit of a fattier, like bacon or pancetta, they're like, oh yeah, I'll try that. Mm. You know. You almost have to tell a white lie.
Yes.
Let them eat it and then tell them what it is. And So it's just depending on the ingredient. I don't really get super wild.
Maybe not even wild, just something that you thought would be a hit and didn't hit. But that makes sense. Like using foie gras.
Yeah.
You know, you've been doing this for a long time. How have you changed as a chef since you first started?
Way calmer. I think when I was like in my 20s, you know, in the early 30s, I was definitely like very hot-tempered. You know, you catch more bees with honey.
Yeah.
I really feel that it's treat people really good, and if they're not going to go your way and they're not going to listen, then there's nothing to yell about.
Yeah.
Move on. Get them out of there.
It's healthier for you anyways.
Yeah. Now, listen, being a multi-unit chef, I've managed to have a chef at every restaurant, so sometimes I get pushed a little bit of the, you know, like, why is he, you know, like, he's not wearing his hat forward, and you're the chef. I'm like, why isn't he wearing his hat forward?
Yes.
Like, let him handle it.
Yes.
You know?
No, that totally makes sense.
So, but, you know, yeah, I would say definitely calmness, and then, you know, trying to delegate, you know, not trying, learning how to delegate, then, you know, just constantly like being there. I'll do it, you know? And then giving up, you know, the ability to co-design menus. Like, I always wanted to do it. Like, I was just like, I'll do it. But honestly, one, your chef's never going to shine if he doesn't develop on his own, you know, or with you. And he's going to regret working for you if you don't give him some opportunity to express himself. You know, because a lot of chefs, you know, one thing they'll say is like, when you're hiring them, you're like, is there an opportunity to help develop? And you're like, yes, and that's like, that draws them in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but how do you balance those egos in the kitchen like that? And probably it's a sense of confidence within you too.
Yeah,
like, hey, I've already proven myself.
Yeah, so they can run specials.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of like talk over the specials, like on how they sell.
Okay.
But if they want to go on the menu, they got to taste me.
Okay.
And if they taste me, and,
perfect.
You know, it's either perfect or I say we got to tweak it this way, tweak it that way.
Yeah.
You know, but they got to taste me. So like this Friday, so Thursday, I'm working on some developing with Giancarlo, the chef at Battello. We're going to work on dishes that I thought of, but we're going to work on them together, because when we walk through them and talk to them, we come up with ideas and we feed off of each other. Now,
it's like creating a song.
Exactly.
It's with different musicians, and then all of a sudden it becomes even something bigger and better than you even thought.
100%. And then Chef Oswaldo at Kitchen Step, he already has dishes that he wants to lay out to me. So I'm going to taste those on Friday, and then we'll talk about them, and then see
How often do you do that?
I would say when it comes to like Chef Ozzy has like maybe 4 or 5 dishes. Mm-hmm. So that usually happens like once a quarter.
Okay.
But like if a special is selling often, then like they'll run the special and they can run it, say, weeks on end. And then we'll be in a manager meeting. So we have a Battello manager meeting on Monday, Kitchen Step manager meeting on Tuesday, and then Ember and Eagle manager meeting on Wednesday. So if someone brings it up and says, oh, hey, chef, you know, Chef Ozzy or Giancarlo came up with this dish, and, you know, we've been running it. We're selling like 20 a night. We want to put it on the menu. It's like, all right, tell me what day you want me to come in and I'll try it.
Sick.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming in.
It is hard, though.
What?
Keeping shape.
That's what I'm saying.
When you're tasting so much. Yeah.
Oh, staying in shape, dude. You're ripped, man. For your age, too. Dude.
I am not even close to what I used to be, but I'm working on it.
I respect it, man. For me, my biggest, I'm around bagels, and I'm like, you know, there's tater tots right underneath my nose. I'm just like snacking all day. It's a disaster.
My wife's a trainer, so.
Oh, really?
I have like, you know, a lot to work with, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to keep up with her. She's
That's badass that your wife's a trainer too, though, man.
Yeah, she's a personal trainer. She has her own company, Studio Evolution. She's going to kill me if I say it wrong. Studio Evolution in Bergen County. And, she's crushing it. So I'm very happy for her. And she's
kicking your butt.
Kicking my ass.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I appreciate it, man. You're making a massive impact on New Jersey. And there's a tradition that what we do is we ask these last 3 questions. And I'm always curious about it, especially from a chef's perspective. What is your last meal?
Ooh. Does it have to be one dish?
No, it could be. It's your meal, man. It's a meal, dude.
All right, so 100% would start off with a dozen oysters from New Jersey. There is a company called Barnegat Collective, which is a collective of oyster farmers petite. They have to be petite oysters. Pasta course of linguine and clams, because that is my favorite dish as a child, and I still to this day, linguine and clams. And then I'd probably finish off with a dry-aged ribeye.
Hell yeah.
And a brunello.
Is there any sides on that with the ribeye?
You know what's crazy?
If your stomach is 10x, what's the sides that you always get at a steakhouse? What are your go-to sides?
It's either palm puree,
okay,
like something potato-esque,
yes,
French fries, or like potato puree, or like a crispy potato. Like it has to be potato. I love eating potato with steak, and again, a really good glass of wine.
Hell yeah! Dinner with 3 people. Any 3 people, who would they be?
Ooh, God. Any
3 people at that meal.
I'd actually like to have dinner with John George again. When I worked for him, if we did an event, he'd take us out, and it was really, really great to sit side by side with him and talk about just everyday things than not being at work. Mm-hmm. So definitely John George. I would 100% would definitely pick my wife.
It's awesome, man.
Because it's just, if it's my last, you're saying this is my last meal?
Yeah, it's our last meal. Yeah, sure. Your wife, yeah. With those 3 people. Yeah.
Oh, man. I probably, it's crazy. I'd probably want to have dinner with George Clooney. Because it's just cool as shit.
Yeah, man. It's a classy meal right there, dude. That
actually, I take that back.
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
We have pictures of Frank Sinatra all over Ember and Eagle. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was, part of that era. I told you he was a saxophone player. Mm-hmm. Loved the Rat Pack era. And if I could have dinner with Frank Sinatra during the Rat Pack era and just get dressed up and go out to a cool restaurant in Las Vegas and throw some dice together, that would be like my primo night.
Hell yeah, dude. Lastly, what's the most impactful advice you've ever been given?
Most impactful advice. I'm still trying to take it. Save money.
I like that. I get it, man. Well, I appreciate you, Chef. I can't wait to try Ember and Eagle. All your restaurants I've been a huge fan of.
Thank you so much.
Before, and you're just I appreciate you're a mentor to many, many chefs. I just want to say that.
I wouldn't say that, but I appreciate
you are, man.
that.
With the New Jersey, absolutely, dude. You really are. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you.